Hello, sixth graders, and welcome to today's lesson on writing introductions and conclusions for our argument essays. So today's I can statement is I can draft the introduction and conclusion for my literary argument essay. We'll also be using all the standards that we've been doing about writing and the conventions of writing and all of that good stuff. So to start, I want to mention that both intros and conclusions focus on the big picture and not on the tiny details. Our body paragraphs were filled with little details to support everything you said, and you use text evidence to support them. Your introduction and your conclusion are going to focus on the big picture and not on all those little tiny details. So don't start filling it up with details. Save that for your body. So most specifically, first let's talk about your introduction, okay? For this argument essay, your introduction should do these three things. First, it should introduce the idea of surviving and thriving. You need to say what survive and thrive mean and kind of what they are, because that's what this whole thing is about. Whenever there's words, keywords that your audience might not know, you always want to introduce that idea in your introduction. Then you're going to present your claim. That claim is your thesis statement. It's what your whole essay is proving, okay? Your claim is going to be that either A, Bud uses his rules to help him thrive, or B, Bud uses his rules to help him survive. It's either A or B. There's no other claim you could be making for this essay. And then the third thing is to explain where your evidence came from, okay? You're going to introduce basically the book of Bud Not Buddy. You're gonna explain where your evidence, where you got it from. So that way you don't have to do that in your body paragraph in the same detail. All right. So now let's look at the model of Steve Jobs' essay and can look at his introduction and see if we can find these things. All right, he starts off the essay by saying, life offers many opportunities to make choices. Life can be both easy and hard. When we make choices during the easy or hard times, we are either surviving or thriving. Okay, so the author here used their introduction to their paragraph to kind of draw the audience in, and they're leading into explaining what surviving and thriving are. Okay, they're introducing those two terms. Now they're going to make their claim. Steve Jobs used his rules in his life to help him thrive. Okay, we made our claim. Now they're going to explain where that evidence is going to come from. He did this despite being orphaned. Okay, there's some of the evidence that he was orphaned. Dropping out of college, that's the second thing. Being fired, and having cancer. That is a part of his claim because those are the rules they're going to use. And then they explain in his commencement address to Stanford University in 2005, Jobs shared his 3 rules to follow in order to thrive in life. And then that's where their evidence is coming from specifically. So what does this look like for Bud's rules? Okay, it means that after you state your claim, you want to kind of summarize, and I mean like summarize the main idea of your 3 rules and mention that those are all related to him thriving or surviving. Look at how shortly they explained them here. He just said, despite being orphaned, dropping out of college, being fired, and having cancer. In the body paragraph, they talk about those things in detail. In the introduction, they just briefly mention them, that they're going to be talking about them. Okay, now look at what a conclusion should include. A conclusion is going to summarize the argument. You're just going to briefly restate what your argument was and the brief evidence that you already have given. And then you're going to close the paragraph by giving us something to think about at the very end. This should be something new that you haven't said before and you leave kind of with your audience to think on. Let's look at it in the example. All right, here we're back to the Steve Jobs model essay. So the conclusion here, that during the body essay or during the body paragraphs, they went through each of their reasons in detail, and now in the conclusion, they're going to kind of summarize their argument and then leave us with a different thought. So Steve Jobs taught us that thriving is about trusting ourselves while also keeping the perspective that life is temporary. So they're summarizing the things that they learned from his rules. Despite hardships, they talked about that in the essay, so they're referencing evidence they had given. Steve Jobs, I'm supposed to say Steve Jobs, followed his 3 rules to live by. Trust in something, do what you love, and let death give you life. So you'll want to restate your 3 rules summarized in just a short phrase, okay? Not the whole thing. Were he alive today, and this is their extra thing they're leaving them on, he might even say this: don't just have rules, actually follow them if you want to thrive in life. Okay, so that's a lot to work with. Today, I want you to focus on the introduction. Okay, if you need to, go back to the beginning of this video where it talks about the 3 things in an introduction and write your introduction. You will have some time the next day to work on your conclusion. So if you can do them both in one day, great, but you need to at least get your introduction done today. Go ahead and get to work.